the same thing, just taking some of this lemon yellow and adding it into here. French ultramarine, just for swatching first. Again, Ukrainian flag vibes. And then just tiny little bit of it I will add into here, and I think this is going to be our middle color. Kind of like a more juicier sap green, I'd say. And then I'm going to add more of lemon yellow. I love this color here. The one that has basically a little bit of the blue, whichever blue, next to the lemon yellow. It becomes a beautiful chartreuse. And then this time a bit more of the ultramarine. There's lovely granulation because this one is a very granulating color. So I'll start the same way. I actually quite like that with the yellow first. So here is our new gamboge. And then now ultramarine. And so this is a more intense color here, like a deeper olive green than the one we had before, but again on a warm orangey side. Some of the granulations are coming through so beautifully. I'll show you a close-up in a minute. Okay, so can't say that I'm loving this middle color. Let's see what happens if we add more of the gamboge. Now that's beautiful. I think it's a more tinted new gamboge, but I do prefer it to that one. Okay, and now finally let's see what happens if we add a touch more of ultramarine. So we get this kind of muddy green, which is very, very nice. Yellow raw ochre. Forgot to swatch it. Okay. Back to ultramarine. And now middle color. Oh, this is actually quite pretty. It's a lovely grey. So they neutralize each other quite nicely. touch more of this ochre. So it becomes like a dirty ochre. There we go. And now just bring a bit more color into here. So this is quite a pretty blue. A muted, not really a endanthron blue, but maybe like a closer to indigo maybe. Obviously not as deep. So I'm going to quickly look at the other books and see what else we could do here with the remaining space. I was going to try and recreate this color here, and this chartreuse. I then realized that I don't have a single Terra Verte in Schmincke, Daniel Smith, or any other watercolor brands. And so I also realized that there is a way to mix this Terra Verte. So I wanted to do a whole separate video where we mix Terra Verte firstly, and then we try to combine it with lemon yellow to get to lovely chartreuse. Let me know in the comments what you think about this idea. I am for sure super excited about it. So instead, what I want to do to finish off this part of the mixing, I don't know if this will be a 3-part video, but I guess you won't complain, will you? Anyway, so from this book now, I thought I will basically concentrate on this part of the little text that I read out to you beforehand. So it's about the permanent sub-green, which I would assume is the Winsor & Newton. And I will follow the advice to add a little bit of permanent rose, which I also assume is by Winsor & Newton, to kind of tone it down slightly. I have never tried this before. I have never tried, or at least consciously I don't remember trying it before, to add a little bit of pink to my sub-green. So I will do just that, but also because I have a bit extra space for 2 more, I decided to match them with 2 other brands. So I also have quinacridone. So the permanent rose is a PV19. I have PV19 in Daniel Smith, which is quinacridone violet, and I have quinacridone red, also PV19 by White Nights, and I have sub-greens in both White Nights and sub-green and Daniel Smith to match the brands. So we kind of will do 3 different brands in the same kind of pigments, and you'll see how different pigments go from brand to brand, and even sometimes it could be the same pigment within the brand but look like different in terms of the color. So let's start doing that. I'm just going to stamp 3 boxes down here and we can have more fun. All right, so let's now look at the Winsor & Newton permanent sub-green. So here it is. And then we're going to follow the advice by adding the PV19 to it to kind of neutralize it a little bit more. All right. So firstly, I will just start by swatching out PV19. So it's permanent rose. So it's quite staining, I would assume, and very, very bright. I'll try to lift some. In fact, I need my rag. These days I find whenever I'm working with watercolor, I just need to have a rag because it's so much easier to control water. Yeah, you can see, so this one is completely staining. Okay, so let's try and mix a middle ground color. So somewhere in here. I ran out of space on this palette, so this is obviously way too much. I don't think this is what the author of the book meant. So let me move some of this color so we can see. So I think what she meant was tiny little bit, but let me just finish off this with a bit more pink because I actually quite like this side of the color. It's very surprising to me that adding a bit of that sub green has actually enriched it and made it deeper. So I prefer this color to the original. It's a very, very interesting color. So now I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of that sub green again and make a nice clean puddle of sub green. Plenty of water. And now all I need to do is just literally touch a bit of this color and see what happens. So I think even that was possibly too much, but I'll go with that. So it definitely neutralized it. Okay, so the memory card ran out, of course. Anyway, so I added a bit more of this sub green here because I think I've got too much of the pink there. I think it's just literally the tiniest amount, and I'm trying to get this sub green a bit more stronger, and I think now this is the right color. I think this is what the artist meant. I'll try to lift this one, actually making a mess here. There we go, and let's go over it. There we go. So it definitely neutralized it. And this color would still be recognizable as sub green. I'm now moving on to White Nights, and here is my sub green right here. So I am going to get some of that color. Into here. The sub green from White Nights is very juicy. As you can see, I didn't squeeze out any paints. This comes from the palette, and look how gorgeous it is. So that's our sub green. And now we have the quinacridone red, which is that PV19. And let's see how different it is. So we'll start by, so you can see already it is quite a bit different. Right here I've done some oranges because I thought they're quite nice mixes when I was cleaning out the palette. So it was this mix here with some new gamboge in there, and then as I went up I just kept adding the lemon yellow. So here we go, we've got the quinacridone red, and let's watch out sap green. So it's even brighter and even juicier. It's almost like grass green. Now let's see what happens when we add the two together. So I'd say this probably would be our middle color. Kind of like a brown. And then let's see what happens if we add more green. It's done a really good job. Love this green. Look at that. Well, best people to learn how to mix your greens would be botanical artists. I have to say, this is probably my favorite green mix. The green just becomes a lot more interesting. Okay, now let's add a bit more of the pink. Again, a really beautiful color. It seems to enrich, the sub-green seems to enrich the PV19. Again, very, very beautiful. It's like a burgundy, like a warm red burgundy type. Okay, so here are the Daniel Smith variation. And basically I have both of the colors in this palette. So we've got the sap green, which is this color here, and then quinacridone violet is up here. So I'm going to use the palette space to mix the colors and see what we get here. So sap green. Now out of them three, I'd say sap green is probably already kind of neutralized. It's as if a touch of that pink was already added. But we're of course going to see how it's going to change it. Daniel Smith sap green used to be my favorite. And here's the quinacridone violet. This one is too blue toned for my liking compared to all of them here. So you can see how different. On its own I really don't like it. But let's see what it does when mixing with it. So this is a lovely color here. I'm going to swatch it straight up here. So yeah, that's gorgeous. A bit dark maybe, but I could have maybe added a bit less of it. And then I'm just going to add even more. And that will be our middle color. There we go. And then even more. All right. So I'll wait for them to dry. I actually quite like both of these colors. So let me bring you in. And here are the colors. I'm going to give you nice close-ups. You can see the granulation and the kind of pigment separation in some of them, which I think is really pretty. And here are the sub-greens and the PV19s. So yeah, I thought that was a really useful lesson, and I never thought to add a pink to my sub-green to get a lovely kind of more natural sub-green. So in terms of the pigments we have here in Winsor & Newton, it's nice and simple. PG36 and PY 101. Oh, sorry, 110. And then when it comes to white nights, it's a concoction of 3 pigments, PY 150, the same PG36, but now we have also a PBK7. So basically a green pigment and a yellow pigment for Winsor & Newton, a yellow, green and black pigment for white nights. And when it comes to Daniel Smith, we also have a concoction of 3. This time we have, surprisingly, a yellow, an orange and a green. So, and maybe that's why it's kind of a little bit more earthier than the other 2. So we have PO48, PG7, so it's quite different, the green they went as opposed to the previous 2. And for the yellow as well, we have a PY 150, just like in the white nights. So this is it for today. I hope you have learned a few things about mixing greens, and you will try it in your own sketchbooks. For the next time, we will then use some of these mixing techniques in creating some botanical kind of abstracty, maybe sketchy, doodly type of work up here. So until then, see you soon.